Scanning for audio.
Hello and welcome to our brand new project. It's the UFO cast does for your consideration or just for your consideration. We haven't really decided. It's our podcast. We'll call it what we want, but
yes,
that's
we will.
Kind of it. We will. So, first off, I'm Michael, the way you always know, the host of the Tin Dog podcast, and my co-host is...
It's Luke, formerly of... why do I say formerly of Tmudworth?
You don't say formerly of. Yeah.
Some people might remember me from that. In fact, you sent me a thing that said we're listed on Amazon, and it still says the authors of the UFO cast are Tit and Dog and Tmudworth. So yeah. I clearly haven't changed that on the back end somewhere.
Fair enough.
But so, yes, you can find me on the Luke Overthinks YouTube channel.
But you'll be listening to this via the UFO cast links or even on the YouTube channel or whatever you want. You'll be hearing it, because if you're hearing it, you've already found it.
Yes.
So, this is our follow-up. We've done UFO, we've done The Prisoner, and now we thought we'd do something else. But we'd do something a bit more chilled and relaxed. So we thought, had a bit of a thing, for your consideration. Basically what we'd do is just the two of us, not a third wheel, because that's always a pain to organise. Fun, but always a pain to organise. Where we bring something for the other person to see, who they may or may not have seen it or watched it or heard it or read it, and then they go away, do the homework, come back, and we have a chat. And at the very end, we'll have a whole, as always, as is tradition, and it's our want, we'll have a chat about which Doctor Who actors or where we've seen these people before in something else. Possibly some Anderson stuff, possibly not. We don't know. In addition to the standard format, what we've decided we're going to do, we may change it, we may not, is the person who proposed it gets asked by the other person, why? That good old question, why? Yes,
which will break your prisoner-shaped computer if you type it in.
Well, everyone needs their own personal general. So
they do.
So,
yes. So you are... I will say Happy New Year to everybody, because although we're recording this in December, this will launch in January, and I think the idea is we do one a month, just to make it chilled. We're not banking any episodes in advance. This is sort of as it goes, really.
Exactly. Yeah, we're not going to bother trying to get everything done beforehand or anything that caused us stress in the past has been abandoned.
God. So, Michael, what are you bringing to the table? I mean, if anybody's seen the thumbnail or the title of this episode, they'll know what it is because we'll put it in true. There. Yeah. But what are you bringing to the table this week?
I'm bringing one of my all-time favourite films, the state-of-the-art and classic, right up to the moment, 1957 movie, Night of the Demon. Not to be confused with the 1980s nonsense video/horror thing. This is the classic, based on M.R. James, casting the runes, Dana Andrews, black and white, gorgeous movie. Because I love it, and I just wanted to share it, and I want to share it with everyone, because I just really, really like it.
Okay. Well, I mean, I guess that was my question. I mean, it makes sense that you're bringing something first up on a new podcast. It's going to be something that you really want to talk about. So, 1957. So older than yourself, and definitely
older than Doctor Who.
Older than myself. Older than Doctor Who. Sort of slightly younger than Quatermass.
Well, it's definitely got some Quatermass heritage
that
going on.
Time period. Yes. So where did you first encounter the film?
Well, there's two stories to this one, and it's a bit weird. First off, I was exceptionally young. I'm sort of like 8, and it's one of those nights where you sneak downstairs to see your parents, and I think my mum had gone to bed, but my dad was was downstairs in the living room watching old films, because that's what he did. And he went, okay. And I walked in the room, and he wasn't cross that I'd got up. He'd gone, this is a great film, we should watch this. Completely oblivious of the fact of the lateness of the hour.
Right.
And it was the very beginning. And then the monster turns up at the beginning. And I'm 8, and I'm like, whoa! Obviously, completely unwilling to suspend my disbelief. And I'm like, this is horror movies. And it in sort of burned itself into my head. And then I went to bed. But I remember distinctly that. And
so you didn't see the whole film at that point?
No,
not
at all. Not at all. I just saw the beginning of the thing coming through the fog towards the car, and it was a black and white film. And I was like, in my head, all horror films were black and white, and they had monsters that looked cool, and that was it. That was my entire definition of horror movie.
Okay.
When I'm a little child, and then I think my dad says, "Oh, it's late, off to bed." So I go to bed after seeing somebody get stomped on, and then. And then I'm going to bed. And then that's in here. Years later, my dad says, "Oh, that film's on again." Well, not even again. My dad just says, "Oh, there's a film on you should watch, and it's great." So I watch it, and it is great because my dad recommended The Prisoner. We watched Dog 2 together. Yeah. There's loads of stuff that we share in common. But I loved it, and then years later, I decide to watch every film that's mentioned in the opening song of the Rocky Horror Picture Show. I've been tempted to sing it. I really have. The late night double feature picture show. And this is the song. One of the lyrics is, Dana Andrews says prunes gave him the runes, and passing them used lots of skills. And that's this film. You know, there's Flash Gordon was there in Silver Underwear. So you got the Flash Gordon, which I'd already seen because they used to be on BBC Two in the at 6 o'clock. They used to show the original RKO serials. Mm-hmm. It was a lot easier in the 80s to see old black and white horror movies on TV. They would show old 50s sci-fi at 6 p.m. on a Wednesday. Mm-hmm. Right, and they'd do Star Trek, and they'd do like The Day the Earth Stood Still, and all of those great, brilliant movies. I don't think they show The Beast from 20,000 Fathoms, but it was that kind of stuff. I adored the Ray Harryhausen stuff, the animation. This is all stuff that spoke to me and pushed me towards wanting to be an animator and all of that business years later. But Night of the Demon still stands out for me because of the way it's shot, the construction of the characters, but it's also a collection of incredibly good set pieces, which I'm sure I'll enthuse about later on. So that's my introduction. My introduction was a fewfold. First off, it was just seeing the beginning, then it was seeing it years later, and then it just it was as good as I remembered, and then I wanted to see more. And it's not a scary horror movie. It's a good story.
I wouldn't have gone near it if you'd said, let's watch a particularly scary movie. I mean, I think I jumped once or twice.
Okay.
But largely, I mean, I don't really.
Hang on. Did you enjoy it?
Oh well. Well, I mean, I guess I have to preamble this by saying it's not really my kind of thing.
Okay.
Because I don't really go in for horror films. I mean, in particular, I don't like gore, which I think is where a lot of horror films have gone since the 80s.
Yes.
Which is not to say that the denouement of this film is quite brutal, where the demon kind of picks him up and throws him around. And I was quite staggered, actually, by how brutal that moment was.
Yeah.
I mean, not a lot of detail, but still, I mean, kind of.
Well, no, it leaves it to your imagination. You can see stuff, but yeah.
Yes, it's kind of Hulk throwing Loki around, but you know that this guy's getting killed. Yeah. So this wouldn't normally be the kind of thing that I would seek out, and I got the sense when I was watching it that I was missing something on a certain level, because this is not my milieu, really. But having said that, I thought it was a well-constructed film. Like you said, the way that it's shot, I mean, the special effects, I mean, like the compositing, or whatever the 1957 equivalent of compositing is amazing. You know, the way that the demon sort of appears out of nowhere, really. And you can't, I wouldn't say that I could see the join or anything. So I appreciated that, and I also appreciated the movie world of the 1950s.
Yes,
which is it's a totally different way of doing things and a way of speaking and a way of interacting. And some of it's like, well, how much of this is like the artifice of the movies and how much of this is a reflection of a bygone era? So, yeah, I mean, we can talk more about specifics, but yeah, I mean, it kept my attention. I think is a way of praising it.
You didn't feel cheated that I'd tricked you into watching it or anything like that?
No, I mean, not at all. Not at all. I appreciated watching something that you care about deeply, and that's something that you wanted to share. And I enjoyed it for what it was. But it wouldn't be the kind of thing that I would naturally seek out.
I was prepared
that's fine.
For you to absolutely hate it. I really was.
I didn't hate it. I didn't hate it. I largely enjoyed it.
So the effects, although they're of their time, they're better than some of the stuff you see a couple of decades later.
Well, yeah, and I would go so far as to say that they are better than some of the stuff we see today.
Yeah.
Because I think where effects go wrong today, they're either trying to do too much for the budget, or they're trying to do stuff with the camera that then kind of throws off your brain. You go, well, that doesn't work. Whereas this is like, this knows what budget it has. It knows what it can, and you see, as you said, you see the monster at the start, but then you only see the monster again at the end. You know, it's a very kind of sparing. Well, a lot of the rest of it is conjured up by all the other tricks of filmmaking.
Because Carswell's the real monster in the film.
Yes.
And he's always present. And that is good. I mean, what I did was, because I knew we were doing this, was I went away and because I always thought, I'll read that story one day. So I went to the M.R. James original on a trip to my parents. I found a podcast or a YouTube video or something where someone had read the story. Because it's out of copyright. It's very old. It's never been done as a BBC adaptation, to the best of my knowledge. Might have been, actually. I think there's a Michael Hordern one on the Blu-ray that you can get these days, which is very nice, which I haven't got, although apparently it's £12.
I could imagine Michael Hordern reading this story would be amazing.
Well, yeah. So I thought, I'll listen to that and I'll give it a go. So it's surprisingly close. Obviously, there's no random American in the way that there's like an American Quatermass in the Quatermass movie, the first two Quatermass movies. We've got this random American turning up for the movie. But in the short story, you've got Carswell, you've got the original death, which is referred back to, where someone's attacked. You've got the British Library moment. You've got the handing over of the original runes. But there's a business on a trolley bus where you see a sign embedded in the glass, which is different. But it's quite close. But obviously, unlike the other one, you never see the monster. You never see the actual demon attack. You just know that someone's died and then it's reported. But there's and the bit at the end with the handing over of the document as well. Well, that's better in the movie by a substantial margin, because then Carswell dies a little bit later in France when some bits of church fall on him, and it may or may not have been some sort of goblin-y demon thing. It's like the original series of the X-Files, where you've got it may or may not be aliens, it may or may not be the monsters, and then towards the end of the X-Files it was like, nope, it's definitely the aliens, this is the aliens this week. There was no double reading of it all. So it's very, very close, but I think the film does a slightly better job.
So I know the name M.R. James, but I don't really know anything about him. Like, when was he writing? Like, when was this original story set? I'm thinking
it's around the turn of the century. I think it's around it's sort of pre-World War I. I don't know. I'm not Mark Gatiss. He's the expert in this kind of thing. And I know he turns up in various different BBC4 documentaries talking about him. And I know he was a lecturer at a university of some sort, and at Christmas he would gather all of his pupils around and kind of regale them with these tales, and he would write them down. But that's literally all I know.
Okay.
I will do more research, and I wish I did know more, but basically that's the original short story. It's got some... you can tell it's the original source because it's got runes and all of that business, but which is nice. Now, here's the thing. I did steep myself a lot more in your witchcraft and your mythology, and because of my age, I also played a hell of a lot of Call of Cthulhu, the role-playing game, as I was growing up. So I was kind of around the same age. Now, this is perfect as a Cthulhu storyline for the game. You've got investigator turns up, is a skeptic, some real spooky shenanigans is going on. Eventually, as the story progresses, they start believing the shenanigans. There's a lot of weirdness goes on, and it fits in, and eventually there's a big monster at the end, and you have to defeat it, but you have to defeat it being clever. So it kind of mirrored the games that we were playing as well perfectly. So for me, and specifically my generation, as a drawing the line under it, then that's where I was at. So I was loving the Call of Cthulhu-ness, the witchcraft, the ancient British stuff going on as well. So that probably spoke to me even more than the spooky short storyness. So it did work a lot like that. Yeah.
So I guess that when I said earlier that I felt that I was missing something, I think that's possibly partly it. I mean, in particular, the scene where he goes to see the family of the guy who's gone insane to get their permission, and I was like, this feels like it's something, but I don't know what it is, because they were they all members of Carswell's coven? Is that the implication?
By implication, it was, and it felt like that bit had been added. Now, apparently, the script was written, and then one of the American blacklisted writers was brought on to give it an extra polish and a bit of pizzazz. And I don't know, as so often happens, if certain scenes, that one specifically, was either added or wasn't edited and followed through enough. I know you needed the family scene in order to do the hypnotism scene, which I definitely need to speak about in a minute. Yeah. But it seemed it was necessary, but it also reminded me of the old Tales of the Unexpected, where they saw the legs off the bottom of the chest of drawers, which is a massive spoiler for anyone who's not seen it, so I should be quiet. But,
I don't know what that refers to at all.
Well, that's a totally different thing. Anyone who does know it will be going, oh yeah. But it's tremendously atmospheric, and it feels almost like it's from a David Lean film, the way it's shot.
Right.
So yeah, I can see why, but obviously that bit of the story is needed because they emphasize the importance of the runes, because they're like, he's got them. Oh, just give him what he wants, get him out of here. But as backstory goes, if you were just watching it the once, you just go, yeah, that was important. I'll pay attention another time. But when you watch it a few times, you go, right, so the brother was going to talk to the original investigator, the one who dies at the beginning, and expose the cult. And he was given the runes.
He was given the
to
runes,
kill him.
right.
But he'd passed them back to Hypnobloke in order to save himself.
Yes.
Or the other way around. Something had gone on. Basically, he shouldn't have, there was a whole passing back. So you establish the whole how to get out of it via a third party. But because Carswell always talks about how he does what he does out of fear, in case it, because when it goes wrong, it'll be his life and his neck on the line, because he's as scared as his followers. But it's fear that gives him the money, that gives him the good lifestyle.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yes, I mean, I thought that was particularly interesting. That you get that kind of insight into his motivation through the conversations with his mother. Yeah. But it's still not entirely clear, like, what his backstory is. I mean, he's clearly interested. He's clearly found the book and translated it.
Yeah, because he used to be a stage magician, or that clown.
Oh, because there's that weird scene where they turn up and he's doing a kids' party.
And there is a version of that in the short story, where he's got a magic lantern show, and he does it, and they're all going, well, I don't know how he did it, but there seem to be tentacles coming out of the screen and scaring the children. And you're thinking, that's cool. When that's not in the film, but you can see that he's actually a lot more affable in this than he is in the short story.
Yes.
But he's so commanding on screen as well.
Yeah, it feels, the beard feels very cliched. It's kind of like telegraphing, I'm a villain.
Yeah. He does look stupidly like Crowley, Aleister Crowley.
Yeah. Aleister Crowley.
And that's who he's definitely more based on.
Right.
In this as well. But, like I said, it was my area of interest, and it was absolutely not your area of interest, and there's no reason you should know about these things.
I know the name Aleister Crowley.
You know the name Aleister Crowley, and
to witchcraft and stuff like that.
Yeah.
And the what was the name of the cat? Graymalkin?
Graymalkin, yeah. That's actually written down in one of the it's one of the traditional ancient names for cats, for the witches' familiars, because now, we almost called our cat that. So yeah.
Is there a cat in the Demons called Graymalkin?
There might be, yeah, but there's also Pyewacket and a few others.
I know that I've come across that somewhere before, and obviously Doctor Who would be the place.
There's also references to Bell, Book and Candle as well, which is an American film, which is a lot more like Bewitched, the TV series. It still deals with witches, and it's got very similar iconography and things like that. But this is definitely the moment. I think watching it a few times, it actually paid more dividends this time, and I was paying more attention. I know I've always loved the bit at the beginning where Dan Elliott goes, I'll do, and he goes, I'll do whatever I can to help, and as an audience member, that he can do absolutely nothing to help, which is why he kicks him out of the house so fast it's unbelievable. And he's like, I'll do what I can. Get out, run away, because the monster's coming.
Yes. I mean, I think even watching this for the first time, it became quite obvious from that conversation that things were not going to go well.
Yeah.
But I guess I just assumed, because it was Denham Elliott, that he would.
Well, yeah.
No, hang on, it's not Denham Elliott, is it? It's Maurice Denham.
It's Maurice Denham, yeah.
Maurice Denham.
Sorry, yeah.
I just assumed that he was going to last longer because he had quite a high billing on the cast list at the beginning of the film, and I was like, well, this conversation is implying that things aren't going to go well for him, but surely he's going to survive the first few minutes of the film, and then he doesn't.
No.
So I think I was quite surprised by that.
Well, yeah.
Because I just assumed that he was going to have a bigger part to play.
Well, no, you do. That's it. But then the monster attacks, and then the sound just cuts off, and there's the little chiming of the clock in the room, and you're like, these guys know what they're doing. This isn't just your ordinary B movie. This is proper art.
Oh, I mean, it was very well done, and the whole ambiguity. I mean, talking of the ambiguity, I mean, obviously they could have, and I read that the original plan was that they weren't going to show the demon, and so you could have done the film in such a way that it was left ambiguous.
Yeah. Because
you have other things like the medium that they go and see.
Oh yeah.
And he imitates voices. Now, obviously, clearly that's him. That's the actor lip syncing to dialogue that the actors have recorded.
Yes.
And the question in my mind is: are you supposed to then assume that because of all the other witchcrafty demonic stuff, which is shown to be true because there is actually a demon who turns up, are you supposed to then come away thinking that the medium is also genuine, in spite of the fact that our hero is kind of sceptical and walks out?
Well, there's a couple of reasons that I think yes.
Right.
In an in-world point of view, because the medium. Let me see, what does he do? Right. Okay. First off, he's Carswell's mum's medium. And yes. Carswell wouldn't have something to do with someone who didn't have actual powers. I don't think.
Right. Okay.
Right. So and he doesn't have an Liverpudlian accent, so he's not like your modern day. Sorry, there's a ridiculous Derek Akura line I was trying to slip in there and failed terribly. So I think that, and also narrative wise, the voice of the uncle comes through, and it's quite definitely him.
Yes. Yes.
So that's why I think it's real. But we do have, and we've got a couple. This scene and the Indian professor are the two major bits of cultural appropriation nonsense, because that is kind of, well, it's not blackface, but it's brownface, because I don't think that guy. I went through the cast list and there isn't an Indian name on it.
No, I think his name is decidedly English, so I assumed that it was somebody who was.
Yeah, he's in the Peter Sellers. He's not as bad as Peter Sellers doing a voice, but I'd not really noticed that much because he's hardly in it, and the character is stereotypical and things like that. But the other guy's doing like the Native American voice and the Scottish voice and the little girl voice, and they are quite spooky. The little girl voice especially. So they do work. I mean, if that scene was in, say, an episode of Torchwood, completely as it is there, you'd still find it very disturbing, and that would be like 40 years on, 50 years on. So. Oh yeah, I mean, it was very well done, very very creepy. And obviously a well-worn trope, the séance. Indeed, I mean we saw it
séance
in UFO, which is probably the reason we've gone full circle on this one.
Yes.
So, right, here's the bit. Did you spot the sound sample?
Oh, no. What sound sample?
Okay, the uncle says, "It's there. It's in the trees. It's coming." Right?
Right.
That is used on the front of a Kate Bush single.
Ah. Right, well, because you said to me, you'll recognise this, and I said,
I genuinely thought
I don't know enough about Kate Bush music.
No, well, it's the opening segment of, well, like you said, is it running up that hill? And well, so you listen to that, you'll hear it, and you'll go, oh yeah, that's it. So this is it, because she's a huge fan because it's kind of in everything. But that's the sample, the uncle talking.
I will have to go away and listen to that now.
Yeah. Hello, this is Michael, recorded slightly later because I was doing some research, and I realised you might not believe me about everyone's favourite Doctor Who author, Kate Bush. So here's the sample.
She's in the trees. It's coming.
So that's from Hounds of Love. I don't want to discuss casting just yet, but there's one bit of casting I need to talk about before we get to the worthy in Doctor Who, because this guy wasn't in Doctor Who, but I do need to discuss this.
Can I preempt you?
Of course you can.
Are you talking about the guy that they hypnotise?
I am, yes.
Okay, so
because I kind of need to talk about that scene, but I need to talk about it you need
to talk about who he is.
Who he is, yeah.
So I'm assuming that, like me, you grew up watching Last of the Summer Wine.
Indeed.
Right.
And Porridge.
Oh, was he in Porridge as well? Okay.
He's Mr. Barraclough.
So I never really watched Porridge. I think I was possibly aware.
Surprise.
Well, it's one of those shows that I've seen in passing, but I've never sat down and watched the whole episode of Porridge. But yes, we used to religiously watch Last of the Summer Wine on a Sunday.
Yes.
And the cast at that time was Peter Sallis, obviously, and Bill Owen, and then
Brian Wilde
as Foggy. So I knew him as a chap in a flat cap with specs.
Yeah.
And I had seen his name on the cast list, and so when he turned up, I was like, okay, you are recognisably you, but obviously you're 30, 40 years younger.
Yeah, he didn't look that much younger, which surprised me. But yeah. The performance is very he's gone completely in for it. There's
yes.
it's not even it's disturbingly good. For me, I find that very emotive, that scene. But maybe it's too much for some people, I don't know. But I think that's a bit bit full on, and especially when he throws himself out of the window. You're like
that felt a bit cliched.
Well, I suppose it's because they can't ask him more questions.
Yes, I mean, I think up to that point, that scene really had me, and then when he threw himself out the window at the end, I was like, oh, okay, you've done that, because narratively, like you say, he needs to be removed.
He has fulfilled his narrative.
He's fulfilled his function.
Yeah,
but I think, I mean, that was fascinating. I mean, the other aspect that we haven't really talked about, and it's one that's quite close to my experience, because a reasonable chunk of my freelance work has been spent in academic conferences.
Yes.
So had I been there, I would have been at the back with a camera, filming what was going on. And I mean, that was the other thing that struck me is that you don't really get to see any of the conference.
True. Until
that bit in the film. But the implication through the conversations that they've had is that they have been going to lectures and stuff throughout the rest of the film. It's just those aren't interesting for us to see. And what we're seeing is him going off and doing stuff in between bits of the conference. And they somehow managed to kind of squeeze that in around all the stuff that he's doing. But it did ring true to an extent. I mean, not that I've ever been to a conference where there's been a live demonstration of hypnotism on the stage.
No.
But there was a certain reality to it that chimed with my experience of like how these things go. Just in terms of like the setup of it, and obviously the minute it devolved into kind of the whole hypnotism thing, I was like, well, this is not my experience. But the rest of it seemed to be, well, that is how academic symposiums kind of go down. So I thought that was quite amusing. A sort of point of connection for me.
So as a little side note for this, when I'm watching this, I'm trying to pay slightly more attention than usual, because often with things that you hold close to your heart, you just kind of put them on in the background and they just give you that warm glow. But I thought, we're chatting, let's pay more attention. So they're in the library, the British Library. There's a brilliant website where it says then and now comparing locations, and the British Library looks the same, and the hall where he lives, Lutherton Hall, is the same, and here's the railway station, completely bulldozed, 1990s monstrosity, and that's it. But in the
where
library,
was the hall? Where? Because obviously that's not a real. It's not actually called Lufton Hall, is it? That's the fictional name for it.
I will look it up and we can put it in the notes, because I don't know off the top of my head. I didn't write that one down.
Okay.
Hello, me from another bit of time, because I've done some research and come back. The hall is Brocket Hall, Herefordshire. Apparently, it now boasts some fantastic and exceptional golf and afternoon teas. The first time you can see it is from the bridge, and the bridge is still there as well. Marvellous. Meanwhile, back to where we were.
Because it was Warwickshire, right? Fictionally, it was supposed to be in Warwickshire, and I was like, well, that's where I live, so...
Well, we'll find out. I really will find out. So in the library, he's gone to get a copy of the book, which is in the original short story, because that's how Carswell works out who's been blacklisting him, because it's the person who's got the book out, because Carswell's quite clever. So,
oh, right, okay.
Yeah,
because that was a loose end that was never tied up. It was like, who's got the
library copy? Well,
that's never revealed, is it?
This is what twigged with me. In the book, in the film, they're asking for, and I wrote this down, the true and accurate discovery of witches and demons, right?
Right.
Now, in the TV series and book series called The Discovery of Witches, she's gone to the library, admittedly not the same one, and it's the Ashmole book. Now, I thought, oh my God, it's the same book, and that's why it's missing, because it's missing in this film, and then she finds it in the other film, in the other book, TV series, whatever, and oh my God, that's brilliant. And I went in and immediately asked my wife, and she went, the book's called The Book of Life, and it's Ashmole 736. And I went, oh, okay. So... Because the series of books is called The Discovery of Witches, and the book that he finds in this is called The Discovery of Witches and Demons. So I got very excited about a link that didn't exist. So, so I just need to be quiet on that one. Yeah.
No, I mean, we like linking things up, don't we?
We do. We like seeing patterns that aren't there. Yes, of course, at this point, I could normally talk about the fact that there's an 82-minute cut of the film, and yet we watched the 96-minute cut. But because I've seen the 96-minute cut so often, it's like watching the director's cut of Blade Runner. You fill in the bits that are missing with the bits you've seen, so you're never actually watching the shorter version. You're watching the full version because your brain's filled in the gaps.
You already know, you're more familiar with the other bits that you expect to see.
Can I just say, with this being New Year, I'm pretty sure that this is the year that we've got flying cars and everything, because I think this is the year that Blade Runner's set. 2024, is that right?
No, I think Blade Runner is already in the past.
Right, okay.
I believe Blade Runner was 2019. I don't quote me on that.
Wow.
But I'm pretty sure we're already past
Blade
Runner.
Past Blade Runner. Okay.
And we're well past Back to the Future 2, because that was 2015.
Oh god, yeah.
So we definitely should have the flying cars.
That's true.
By now. Well, I mean, we're also past the enemy of the world as well.
The future is in the past.
Yeah.
Okay, so I'm glad that I got to share this with you very, very much. Because, like I've said, I've gone on about it long enough. And you didn't hate it, which means basically score.
No, I'd go so far as to say I largely enjoyed it. It just, like I say, it wouldn't be the kind of thing that I would have sought out.
Yeah.
But having been asked to watch it, I mean, it held my attention pretty much for the whole length.
Which is not bad, really. I mean, it does have similarities to the Quatermasses of the time, the movies, in the sense of you've got a token American doing some investigating in England and things happen. But obviously there is the spiritual, the spooky end of things, which you tend not to get in the Quatermass in the sense of it's explained away by science.
Yes.
And he's using science and he can't explain it away. So it's kind of the opposite in that sense. But if you like Quatermass, you're probably going to quite like this. So that's fine.
Yes, I mean, that's potentially going off on a tangent here. There's an interesting sort of line there, really, in terms of he's a skeptic.
Yeah.
But he's a skeptic in a world in which witchcraft actually works.
That's true.
I mean,
so he's wrong.
Some people would say we do live in a world where witchcraft works. Or, I mean, the extreme example that people point out at this time of year as we're recording this is that why are people, in movies where Santa Claus exists, why are there people who are sceptical about Santa Claus? Like, where do they think the presents come from? You know? That's just a trope of Santa Claus movies, that even though Santa Claus is real in the world of the film, there are adults who still don't believe in Santa Claus. And
that's to make it feel more like our film. I mean, there's a line in Elf where the elf is going, some people don't believe in Santa, and he goes, what? All the parents are going to get together on one night and do it together? Are you insane? And it's like, you're right.
But so coming back to this film, this is a world in which witchcraft and demons are demonstrably shown to exist.
And have for centuries, yeah.
And have for centuries. And so the attitude of the sceptical professor is then more... would seem to be more of an extreme position, because he's actually being sceptical about something that